June is Audiobook Month. Join Viviana, the Enchantress of Books, and the Audiobook Lovin Series as she celebrates the authors and narrators who bring your favorite stories to life. Not only will this month be packed with exciting guest podcasts full of all things books, but stick around after each episode for some special information about this year's giveaway and more.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 9, Episode 13 of this year's Audiobook Lovin Series. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with author TJ London, and we have also with us, TJ, you're going to have to give us that little special name that you give her sometimes, but is author and audiobook producer Daniele Lanzarotta. Hopefully I got that right, Danielle. I'm sorry if I didn't.
It's close.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, she's also the owner of Elysian Nightfall Studios. Welcome, ladies.
Hello. We're number 13.
Yes,
we're lucky. We're lucky number 13. Thank God the Mercury retrograde's over, right?
A lot of people think 13 is a bad number, but actually 13 can be pretty lucky. It's funny, you know. So
well, yeah. It would have been even more lucky if it was Friday the 13th during a Mercury retrograde and we were number 13. Then we would have been really lucky, right?
Yes, that would have been very extra. But it's Monday, and I get to talk to you guys on a Monday, so I'm excited.
Yay!
So, TJ, what was that nickname that you were giving her about we have with us today, our rare bird sighting?
Oh, yes, it is a rare bird sighting today. I told her I was going to call her out for this. Yes, we have Danielle. She's the kind that doesn't like to be seen or heard. No, seriously, she's the unsung.
I stay behind the scenes.
She's the unsung hero, basically, the unseen, hardest working girl in the audio business. So welcome that rare bird.
Yeah, and I love popping cherries, so thank you.
I'm happy to assist you in this process.
Yes, too. This is a lovely threesome. It's fantastic.
What did I get myself into?
You remember that apology paper that I put up here and the paper tantrum notes that I gave you? Yeah, I already apologized ahead of time.
Well, TJ has been here a few times already because I love having her more often than not. This is going to be a fun episode, folks. Sexual innuendos everywhere. TJ likes to keep coming back, but when we start with TJ, having you tell us a little about yourself, how long you've been writing, and how you got started. The short version.
So before I say anything, I don't want you to you're going to pull it on me where you change all the questions because now I know all the answers. I did borrow that from Rowdy Piper. I'll be very honest with you, but so yeah, I'm TJ London. This is time number 4, I think.
So.
I think this is 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4. Yeah. Last time I was here was with the Man of War cast, and that was super fun. So now I get to be here with Danielle. Out of here. Obviously, I write American Revolutionary War historical fiction. I have 4 books on the market currently. I started writing I started writing a long time ago. I think I've said it before when I was a kid, but I really got serious about writing about maybe 10 years ago. And my first book, The Tory, came out in 2018. And then in 2020, my first audio came out. So that kind of introduced me to this whole audio world. And now we're looking at audio number 4, The Turncoat, which will be coming out in July of this year. So that's me. But I really want to push the conversation over to Danielle.
Already?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on.
Your
join
turn.
the conversation. It's all you.
All right. So I'm Danielle, but everybody calls me Danny. Like I said, I stay behind the scenes. I own Elysian Nightfall Studios, where I do mostly post-production for video and audio. Every once in a while, I dab into production. I only do very few of those because I like to be involved in every step of the way, which is very time consuming, but it's so much fun.
Time consuming. As I laugh secretly over here maniacally.
Danny, and you're also an author. Share about that.
Yeah, I write a little of everything: horror, romance, drama. I always say that the only thing that I have in common in between the book series that I write is that in every book, there's at least one character that needs therapy.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Right. I was like, that's of all the things to have, something.
Only one? I feel like I have
Okay,
all of them.
I said
that need
at least
therapy.
one. At
At
least
least
one.
one.
I have to say, Danielle, you produce my audios. Like my whole cast needs it. Seriously.
Like I have the Sinner series. Pretty much
Mhm.
every character in there needs therapy. So
Don't we all?
Which is fabulous, by the way. If you haven't listened to it, read it. I love it. It's awesome. So just my plug-in for it because I really love it.
thank you.
So you guys are the dynamic duo when it comes down to making TJ's fantastic stories come to life via audio for us. Tell us a little bit about the process of what it looks like to work together. You know, how did that start? TJ, stop laughing.
Do I need to say be nice?
No.
And that's at me, not at her.
Yeah.
No, it's a fun process. TJ always wants more, and I always agree to it, so it works out. But it's a group thing. We couldn't do it without so many amazing narrators, and we have a lot of them, which makes it extra special to have a different voice for each character. And really, they've become the characters over the projects. Like Tara, she is Dallas. There's nobody else who could ever voice that character. Whenever I go to email her about anything, I almost type Dallas instead of her name.
I call Adam Alexei already, and like he hasn't even read The Rebel yet. He hasn't narrated it yet. So I just like, hey, Alexei, and he responds in email. He's like, okay.
And there's just a lot of passion all around, which helps. That's one of the main things that I wanted. I wanted everybody to involve to be really passionate about the characters in the project, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. What I find fascinating with the two of you is usually traditionally, especially if you're a part of the top five, the big five publishing houses, usually authors don't have a whole lot to say when it comes down to the casting and who gets cast and what that process looks like. Indie authors tend to have a lot more control, but also depending on if they work with a production company or not and what that looks like, because again, different dynamics for different things. But TJ is very involved with casting, which I love because who knows better than the author that created it, right? And these are complex characters and finding the right voice. So how does that work between the two of you? Because it's a rare relationship in these days in audio to have someone, that dynamic going.
I'll let you start, Danielle.
Okay.
I'll let you start.
I don't know if it's because I went to school for digital cinematography, so I came with a little bit of film background, and that could be the reason why I enjoy that kind of collaboration. Like you said, nobody knows the characters better than the author, and having the author involved just gives so much. It gives more. You have that extra insight. Of course, there are characters that I've come to know as much as she does, but like, for example, when we're casting Alexei, we had so many amazing auditions. They were all like just amazing. So I sent it over to her, and I sent it without names, and but I already knew who she was going to pick.
Oh yes, that was fun.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, when that happens, when auditions are sent without names, that's traditionally called the blind audition, and that way there is no bias as far as who is or thinking, oh, this is going to be great because it's so and so, or oh, this might not work because it's so and so. This allows for a complete unbiased opinion of just the voice and the character. TJ?
So I was just going to add, it's interesting because I came into audio really not knowing anything about audio, which is the way I think a lot of us do, whether we be independent or we be traditionally published, whatever your background is as an author. And for me, it was one of those things that like, it's twofold. I'm a control bitch or a control freak, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's fine. I admit both. And I'm every author is intimately connected with their characters, but I feel like I'm even more so, one, because I write from counseling, and two, because it's an ongoing story. Like I don't just step into a story and then step out and step out and step out into different stories. It's just one big ongoing story, right? So as we were working through the audio process, I just like felt this need to be more engaged in the voicing and the performance. And I'm also one of those people that like does want more. I'm like, yeah, give me more voices, give me more acting, give me more noise, give me more everything. Like I'm always like everything, I think I live in excess a bit, but that's okay. Right. Some of us do. So I wanted it just like bigger and better. And the thing was, if I wasn't ever going to have a TV show, which God, I would love to, but I mean, if I wasn't, I wanted my audio to represent like that version of how I see it grandiose in my mind. Right. So it was interesting. Danielle just really is kind of, she not kind of is a visionary, right? Like I have the idea and she helps me execute on it. And so it's like the perfect, to me, setup for an author who wants to be involved. Like I would tell Danielle, and I told her, I go, she never tells me no. Like I'm sure she would if it was a bad idea, but I mean, there have been times where she's like, maybe not like that, or maybe not that way. But she never really ever said, no, Tracy, when I was like, can we have more actors? Like, what about this? What about this? And she's like, yeah, I see it. I hear it. Like even on Man of War, can I get some cannons in the background? Can I get a little fire? She's like, oh yeah, I see that, you know? So it's nice because like, she kind of gets my vision and she helps me like bring it to life, but also has her own vision for how it needs to sound. And there's a trust component that you have to have when you have that much love and care of your own work, that the person you hand it over can execute on your vision and also take it to a place where you couldn't take it. So for me, like having this I could not have asked for a better setup as somebody who has really like embraced the audio medium as really how I've gained most of my fans. So I'm very fortunate. I tell her all the time, thank you for not firing me as your client, because as passionate as I am on this phone call and this podcast and on, you know, everything that I do, I am that way in my work. And I recognize that, you know, people can either take that as over the top, or people can go, no, I get it. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it something great. And she's that person who goes, no, I get it. I can take this and make it great. So, yeah, somebody else might've fired me though. I gotta be honest with you.
I think one good way to put it is that we really help each other think outside of the box.
Yeah. And the reason, and I will give her credit for one thing. Just one big thing. But this is a big one. So the fans will be very happy about this. There is an Alexi book because of Danielle. And there are, actually 3 Alexi books because of Danielle.
So far.
Yeah. So far. No. But truly, Danielle like loved that character, which I was always like, why? Help me understand. But she kind of fell in love with it and was always like, is there going to be an Alexi book? Like, I don't remember if you were like needling at me or if it was like little bites or if it was, you know, like in my sleep, you were sending off like vibes at me. But eventually there became the Alexi book and I'm like, hey, it's your fault, man. It's your fault now. So I actually plan to dedicate the book, and I'm not joking, and she knows this, to her, and like, here it is, for better or worse. You know, so yeah, but I have to thank her for that too. She really does inspire me to do different things, not only in my writing, but in my audio. So
yeah. Also, Danny is a fan of audiobooks too. So I think that helps with that passion, is that she can kind of see where we're currently at in an industry versus where we could be and where we're going to make it so much better. Because right now, I mean, this whole multicast thing is relatively newer in the audiobooks, specifically in the romance. And because it used to be known as radio shows.
Right, in the 1940s.
In the 1940s and the 50s. I mean, that's also kind of how the transition into TV actually happened. But what you were seeing in I Love Lucy shows, it was exactly what was performed in the radio, with the sound effects and the door knocking and the heels and stuff like that. And the multicast where everybody had their own role. And now we're going back into that.
And that was like one of the feel good things about COVID, because it really helped. You know, so many narrators started to work from home. And, you know, with us doing multicast, it just made it so much more affordable for authors to be able to get that for their audiobooks.
Because there's no need for renting of a studio when they both have
one. No need to, you know, travel expenses for everybody to record in the same studio too. So, you know, now we have throughout the saga, we have some narrators in England, we have one in New Zealand. So imagine trying to get everybody in the same studio to do that.
Oh God, no.
Well, it wouldn't have happened. And the interesting thing too for me was that, like, I don't think I would have gotten into audiobooks or producing my books in audio if it hadn't been for the pandemic. Because it was one of those things that, I wasn't able to go to any book events and to really get out there and advertise myself. And I was kind of grounded at home, like not my usual work travel either. So like with this much energy, you have to do something. So it was when I got reached out to about my first audio production, I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is a good thing. So it certainly was good for me as an author in terms of exposure and learning more about it. And then obviously, then I started to see more of these duets and was like, oh, why can't I do that? And then I started seeing multicast. I'm like, oh yeah, and then it just kept going and going. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been a really interesting process and learning curve too.
Yeah, because there's a lot to learn. I think a lot of times people think, oh, it's easy, or I have a production company do it, and then the results may be great, but also like, oh, I wish I would have done this differently. And we don't know what we don't know, and sometimes we don't have anybody in our lives, whether personal or work life or even social media, that can have that conversation of, hey, make sure that you ask for XYZ. I think now we're being a bit more vocal in what this process looks like, and how can an author go about getting their book titles in audio and the variety of options they have, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, even myself as an author, when I did my first audiobooks was before I started working with audiobooks. So, there were one narrator, there was a lot that I didn't know. And now I'm going through the process of redoing some of those audiobooks to make them multicast because they're really so much more fun. But of course, I'm keeping the same narrators from back then for the main character because they were amazing, just adding more to it.
I was just going to say also, it's one of those things too, where like, I know for myself, why I wanted to go to multicast was like, there were certain voices I just really wanted to hear. Like the Tory was done by 4 perspectives, but they were done individually. Like everyone, they did all the voices within those perspectives. I was like, oh, but I really want to hear Patrick Zeller read this line. And I really want to hear Tarla Jella say this line. And so it was one of those things that I was like, is that a thing? Right. And then it was starting to just get bigger and bigger at that point. And so it's that it kind of blooms. Once you do one, it just kind of blooms on its own. Yeah.
And let's face it, the moment that Patrick Zeller says Johnny as Delancey, those need to be his voice every time.
Patrick Zeller he can say just about anything in my audio and I'll be like, yeah, all right, there you go. But it is the truth. That is the truth. And Danielle will attest to this. The main reason I did want to go with the multicast, doing their own parts, essentially was because there was a scene in The Traitor where I absolutely wanted to hear Patrick Zeller do the narration because he just embodied that character. And I'm like, oh gosh, nobody should be doing those lines. So kudos to him because it's his fault. There you go.
Patrick, now if you didn't before, all this is your fault.
It's all your fault, right? And I honest to gosh, I have a super duper love for my original cast that came on for the Tory. They've stayed with me, right into the other books. And I kind of look at them as like on this like journey with me. And obviously Danielle's been with me since the very beginning too. So it's kind of been like this journey together. And there's a deep love and trust there with that group of individuals because they've, really kind of said, yeah, we'll take a chance on narrating this. I mean, obviously it's a job, right? But they put their heart and their passion into it and really set the tone for how it was going to go moving forward. So
yeah, because even though there are romantic elements in your story, it really is a historical fiction with romantic elements. And a lot of the narrators are more traditional romance, as far as that goes. Some may not have even done a historical ever before. And now they're doing a historical, which is, all the raves now, thanks to Bridgerton. And it's just one of those things where, it allows for them as actors, which a lot of them are from the theater or the films and TVs, to really expand their skill sets. Even though it's an audio format, but I mean, like Patrick Zeller has, plays a villain and then he'll play a bunch of drunk guys like he did in Man of War, and you're going, holy shit. I mean, I have a really good ear. And there were times where I'm texting TJ, was that Patrick? And she's like, yes, it was.
or even Jason Clarke in that one. We know that he's like an audio chameleon, right? Like we get that. But there are times where he could like, I had fans ask me like, who did this voice? And I'm like, who do you think did it? Right.
Yep.
I mean, there's one that always stands out. Like no matter what voice he does, you know who John Hartley is. You're like, oh yeah, that's John Hartley. But like,
and we have a couple of new cast members.
Yeah.
They are fantastic too. And I warned TJ, I said, you know, you were going to listen and you're not going to know who it is because they were just, wow.
Yeah. I have no doubt with like Adam Gold has, I mean, oh my gosh, like he sent us after his audition, right? When he was starting to do some of the early clips for us, he sent us like 5 different versions of one like line. Okay. He's like, I can see it going this way and I can see it going this way. And Danielle and I are like, which one? Like, how are we supposed to choose? It was like, you know, it was like picking up perfection out of a pile of like perfection. I mean, it was just fabulous. And they were all so very different, right? And it was interesting to hear that. So he was very interesting. And then obviously we have Connor who does some different characters and they have very different sounding voices too as well. And I'm like, oh, that's him. And I think it'll be really surprising for his fans too, to hear him do, you know, some different things and stuff like that. And then obviously Samantha too, she's going to be playing some different characters too as well. So I think it'll be fun.
Especially because again, going back with the romance side of things, where a lot of the listeners are used to hearing, like, for example, a Connor Craze to have more of that deeper alpha Dom kind of voice, even though a lot of times people tend to sometimes forget he's a Shakespearean, you know, actor. He does accents. I mean, people know that he has a great Irish accent. But there's other things too. It's just, again, it's just being able to expand the skill sets and get into these different characters without having to worry about wardrobe.
Oh, he will be doing alpha. It might not be all romance, but
yeah. All right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, we don't really complain, but it's just very fascinating when they get into these roles where we as the listeners sometimes go, who was that? And realize it's the same character, you know, same actor doing different voices. And then we're also getting these completely different personalities, because I mean, there's some that you just love to hate, you know, in your books, because if for those that may not have ever listened or read a TJ London book, besides the fact that you're going to wanna, she writes these characters without asking for forgiveness, in the sense of like, some of these people are downright bad, not like bad good, but like bad well, bad.
I do want to say for my baddies though, to their credit, all the people who come in and do my baddies, like they kind of get excited about it.
They do.
And they're willing to go there too as well. So that really helps. I mean, like Marnie Young is like the quintessential bad girl in my series, and she is the sweetest woman in the world, right?
Yeah.
And she just goes there. So I know I interrupted you on that one, but I had to make that comment. Like they all kind of go, like even Connor, when we dialogued, and I know Danielle will agree with it, we were like, well, okay, I recognize this is a little different than what you're used to, but here's what we see and here's what we think. He's like, yeah, I get it, you know? So they all get pretty excited about like almost jumping out of their skin a little bit. I don't ever look at a narrator as being a romance narrator. I'm gonna be very frank with you.
Good.
I look at all of them as a voice, as a canvas, right? Like actually more essentially as paints to me. Like I think in terms of like my writing and painting and layers, right? And each edit is the building of a portrait, right? I kind of look at their voices when we hear them as painting in layers. Do they mix well together? Do they sound pretty together? Do they, you know, not do they look pretty together, but do they sound pretty together? Do they like build off each other? Do they enhance each other when we hear them together? So even the villains become really essential, because you don't want another Delancey, you know, you don't want another Patrick Zeller. So then you put yourself a John Hartley, right? And then you put yourself a, you know, we essentially have a Connor Crass, right? That's going to do one of the voices. So as you add them, like these are different sounds, but they can all like kind of come together and sound right together. So I do want to say when it comes to voices, for me, it's like, I don't ever look at them like they're a romance narrator.
Yeah.
I look at these individuals like, is that a voice I want? Do you know what I mean? And I'm always looking and listening and asking, and Danielle will tell me, I've heard this, or I've heard this, or I've heard this. I mean, even you, Viv, right? Yep. You've been like, hey, have you heard this? John Hartley, for example, you were like, hey, have you heard this one? You know, I mean, you've put several of them out there to me. And then I have other friends who are like, have you heard this? Have you heard this? And then just what I see on my own. So it's very much like that's kind of how I look at it. And I know Danielle has probably her own ethos when she goes looking too, but
and I do something similar, and I'll listen to, a narrator, whether they're reading romance or, and I'm like, okay, I wonder what they could do with this type of book. Like in Connor is one example. We're like, okay, I think he would be really, really good here. It's like nothing he has done before that I've heard, but I think he's going to be great, and he's just perfect.
Well, I think they get typecast. I think that's the issue. So I love that we're talking about this, because audiobook world is this huge lake, and there's a small corner with the different genres kind of things and all over the place.
Absolutely.
And sometimes they get stuck in that one little side of things where their gifts can be almost swim all over the place, but they get a little typecast, and we're used to hearing one or two or some of them in a particular type of role. And then these are the opportunities that they can get sometimes that's outside of that to really stretch out their skill sets and have the opportunities for all of us to hear what exactly they can provide. That's not the traditional.
Not to go back to him, but I think Connor's a perfect example of this. He's so fabulous in the romance genre and in rom-com. Like he's a force to be reckoned with there. And it makes complete sense to me. And I remember when Danielle and I've been listening to him for a long time going, there's something like I really see him in my stories. And I think you and I even dialogued 2 years ago when I first got into the audio business, about him. And me and Danielle have been, back and forth, like going, okay, there's a place for him. We just need to figure it out. And I believe it was Danielle who actually was the one who said to me, what do you think about Eagle Eyes? Because here I'm thinking romantic hero in the story, right? Which he does actually voice one of the characters that will be a romantic character later. He does two major characters, but Daniel's like, no, what do you think about this? And it kind of turned my whole concept of the character on its head just by her looking at his voice that way. So, it's one of those things that like, it's actually, to me, it's just like it's another like notch, on like his belt or on the wall or however you want to put it, right? Of just really great things that he can do. And, and if that's something he chooses to do down the road. So, and like I said, he was so amazingly like giving when we spoke with him. He's like, oh yeah, this is what I see. And what are you looking for? And even said, give me, what is the one thing that you want to hear out of this voice? And then he sent us this clip and just delivered on it completely. So, it's interesting. And even like, and even to his credit, Cale, who does John Carlyle, he does do romance, but he does a lot of other different things too, like all over the place. Right. And, we brought him in and said, okay, I need to put you in we're putting you in this very British character with this very, kind of interesting, like, I don't know, he's scoundrel, he's our hero, he's all these different things, and he was but I need him to also be this very terse military man. He's like, yeah, I get it, and so it takes the passion from the narrator and the willingness to listen to the author as well as obviously the producer, and then take it and create it on their own. So we've been really lucky with the team that we've put together, that that they want to go on the journey too. You know what I mean? That they
absolutely. And since you brought it up, I remember that conversation 2 years ago when we were talking about the different narrators, both male and female. And I'm like, hey, one that you may want to keep an eye on is Connor Craze. I think I recently, because he was on the podcast, popped his cherry too, which I love, and for the podcast. And it's just one of those. But I also love how you think in the sense of, he was a good voice, but he was not the right fit. And I think a lot of authors and even production companies don't stop to think a little bit more or deeper into that. Is it a right fit for that character? And you kind of put him in on the side a little bit until the character came into place, and you're like, bam, that's who he's gonna portray. And it's just so important to casting.
I will say there's a lot of people I know I want to work with. It's just a matter of finding that place. And I'm sure Danielle gets it too. Like Adam Gold was one of those for her. She's like, this guy, Trace, I want to work with him. Like, I think he's going to be a good match for us. Right. And for me, John Hartley was one of those too. He auditioned for a different role. And I was like, he's not right here. But then he did the other audition, and we were like, oh my gosh, like, is there any other role, right? Like, and now, like, I can't let him go. Like, he's permanently a part, like, he's mine now. He stays in my cast. Like, I can't. kind of like I had to create a role for Patrick Zeller because like his characters always end up dying off because they're bad guys. And so I'm like, well, he has to keep coming back. Like I can't lose him. Like he must stay. But even like Marnie, well, that being said, Celeste never goes anywhere. So for all of you who think she's going anywhere, she's not. But and of course Nellis too, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, but like when it comes to certain auditions, like like I know what I'm looking for when I hear it. Like I know what to me it's like what sparks my ear, that magic when I hear it. And it's funny, Danielle said, she's like, I knew which one Tracy was going to choose. She sends me this beautiful, like, 8-9 narrator package, in my email. She's like, have fun with that. And by the way, I know who you're going to want. She's like, I'm like, okay. So my husband's like, what are you going to do? I'm like getting myself a drink ready. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to listen to this. It's going to take me a while. Right. And I'm not kidding. These were like top incredible male narrators in this list that, she'd taken all the names off. She shuffled them up and listened to all these, and any one of them would have been brilliant, but my ear knows what it wants to hear. Like, I know it when I hear it. And certainly, that's been the same, I think, really ultimately, like I know when I hear it, I just have to sometimes find the character for it. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And even with the ladies, I mean, Tara,
oh
my
gosh,
God,
yeah.
her voice. Oh, she has this like husky, there's some Tara, she has some the huskiness and the sarcasm and the sexiness in her voice that she can just do no wrong.
Tara, the funny thing about Tara was so there were several different auditions for the Tory originally. So obviously she's been with me since the beginning with our team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard her, and Dulles to me it delivers like me. She's a super fast talker. She's a very aggressive talker. She's often like, maybe stumbles over, talks just like there's energy coming out of her words. And every audition was very nice, but they were a lot kinder to the words, and they were a lot like calmer. And Tara just came like gangbusters out, like just bam, bam, bam on those lines and delivering them so smoothly. And the energy in her voice and everything. And I was just like, that's it. Like she's perfect, right? She just was perfect for it. And I don't know, Danielle, how you feel about it, but whenever we get a clip from her, it's just like, what am I supposed to say? It's perfect. Like, she's just that good.
It's crazy though, because, we worked on the first and second books, and I'm like, okay, she's amazing. How is she going to top this? And then she comes in
my beer
on the TURNCOAT, and I'm just like listening with my mouth hanging open because, wow.
Full stop. I haven't heard it yet. She's been taunting me for a while. So she knows all the secrets right now. Next time I'm on the podcast, I'll be able to say something about it.
Yeah, for those that may not know, once the book is written, it becomes a bit of a script. The narrators get it. They have to record it. They'll also provide you with a 15-minute sample, just to make sure that the tone and the cadence of what they think it should be is. And then, Danny, you get these first. And
I actually shared those 15 minutes with TJ. It's not a common practice. Mm-hmm. But I want her to listen, to give her feedback also, direction notes if she has any. So of course we didn't ask for like the returning cast to do them because they are the characters. They don't need it. But for the new cast members, they did the first 15, and then I shared with TJ so she could listen.
The best notes ever were the ones I left for John Hartley and Kale. They're like, I want you two fighting like little bitches here. That's literally what it is. I want you to be as obnoxious as you can be in this scene, like little bitches. I mean, like literally that's what I put in the notes. Yeah. So I do leave some interesting love notes. The first 15 for me was interesting because she's absolutely right. I didn't really listen to those before. This was a new thing. And I'm actually really glad I did, because it you do provide feedback, right? But it's also like, it's that first moment of you're like, yeah, okay, I made the right choice. Like, you know what I mean? It's that like, I'm super obsessive about everything in my work. So it's even how they sound, like even going into, I'm like, what's it going to sound like? What's it going to sound like? So even when I get to hear them do that, it kind of is very reassuring to me that we've we've made the right choices, right? But then also, like, Danielle and I secretly swoon over it. We're like, oh my God, did you hear that? Or whatever. Did you hear that? Oh my God. There's a couple of, I'm sure we listened to over and over again.
Mhm.
Usually I'll get like a poke in my email and it'll be like at 1 a.m. And they'll be like, I sent you mail. Where are you? Are you awake? And then of course the next morning I'll get up and listen to it. And then it's like 5 a.m. I'll be like, Danielle, where are you? Are you awake? Why are you sleeping? Right? Because our offices are open at all hours. And yeah, that was definitely us in the first 15. And it was, every clip is exciting. You know, honestly, like every time you hear your book come to life and done by such skilled people, it's exciting. Yeah.
And that, folks, was just for the first 15 minutes, her reaction. Imagine now that they've provided you now with the whole audio for them individually. And Danielle, this is where you're now going. Because you have the files and now you're, double checking them. You have to send them over to TJ. Is there any, has there ever been a moment where you're going, I cannot wait for that scene? Because
all the time,
right?
There are times where I'm like, I can't wait for her to hear it. Mm-hmm. So that she can go, oh, that was messed up, Tracy.
And with it being a multicast,
yep,
I go through it first, and I just plug in the lines where they go. The narrators leave a little click mark where the other lines will go. So I'll just listen to snippets of it as I plug in the lines where they go, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to find out what's happening here. I'm like, oh, here's Alexi taunting John. This is gonna be great.
Full stop. She plays favorites. He's her favorite, so y'all know.
Yeah, Alexi. Well, that's the other thing too, because it is duets, and it's one of those when we hear just the one side of the conversation, and it's one of the reasons why I love duet is that whole interruption of when they're having banter, and TJ writes the best dialogue between characters.
Oh, thank you. It's
and
probably because I'm fighting in my head most of the time. That's why.
Probably, but there's just something when it's done in duets with a multicast, you're literally almost like watching a movie in front of you, or a play, and the narrators embody these characters. I mean, when I'm listening to John and goodness, some of those clips are good.
Man of War, I gotta be honest. Me and Danielle were like, oh my God, seriously. Like we both had hangovers when Man Over War. We're like, how can it be done? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, Man of War was fantastic.
John Hartley, in the prepping process, he is playing K.O. Williams' brother in the book. And he said, can you send me a clip of his work? Because, I want to listen and play off mine based on his. And listening to them now is like, it's like they are brothers. Mm-hmm. It's just great.
And the thing is, could you imagine that dynamic duo? And in the book, there's a scene where Dulles is standing between them and they're like yelling over her. Okay. She's got these two obnoxious men with these hot voices yelling over her. Right. And she has a moment of like, I don't know if this is a bad thing or a good thing. She's like, she's having it. And that's really me thinking as I'm writing it secretly, because I rewrote the book, right? And I knew who the narrators were going to be. Me secretly going, ha, 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 what it would be like to have these two yelling over my head. I mean, I admit there are some lines in there, and I confess that are there because I want to hear them be said. So
I can tell you that at the beginning of that scene, I was like, poor woman stuck in between those two. And then by the end of it, I was like, okay, she's kind of lucky. Yeah,
I was like, I volunteer as tribute.
I'll take this one for the team, right? Yeah. Or the scene with, definitely there's some great scenes with K.L. Williams as well as Adam Gold, because we now see Alexi and John in the same, situation a couple times in this book. And that would be a nice little one to be in the, and there's actually one where it's Connor, John Hartley, Adam Gold, and K.L. Williams all together. And you're like, well, isn't that a fun little party? We got going on here. It's like being stimulated. And you're like, whoa, oh my gosh. Right. And so it's super fun to hear that. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like having a treasure chest of like a perfect male voices. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, who wouldn't want that? Right. So yeah, of course I'm a greedy bitch. I want more. So. I was gonna say, and there's and not to take away from the ladies, we have Samantha Brentmore, we have Marnie Young, and we have Shayna Small and Tara Langella all in one room at one time. Like, hello, like that lineup right there, Audie winners, Sova winners. I mean, like these gals are like, they're amazing. And they're all like basically talking smack about the boys, how like, oh my gosh, we don't need men. I mean, there is a scene literally where Samantha's character is like, just get the boys out, just get the men out of here. We don't need to deal with them anymore. No more of their trouble, right? And it's that beautiful symphony of their voices, and they all sound so different. If you think about what those voices are,
Yeah,
they're just these really exciting female voices that are all very unique too, as well. So for all the exciting boy scenes in there are exciting girl scenes, or women, men, however you want to put it. But there are some great ones there too. And I don't want to take away from these incredible ladies who have been so supportive of my work and the journey with me too as well. So Shayna was with us actually in The Traitor. So she does Agnes, and Agnes was not in Man of War, so we didn't see her there. But she comes back to do Agnes, and Agnes is actually based on one of my best friends, a woman named Angela. And I remember in her audition, I heard her and I'm like, oh my God, it's my friend Angie. So we, obviously, and she was kind enough to come back and do this role again. And I don't think anyone would forgive me if I didn't bring her back, because she just really embodies the sanity in the middle of the chaos. And that's what that character really is. She is the grounding in the middle of so much chaos. So I love her voice. She's brilliant.
And Samantha Brentmore is coming in and doing a variety of the characters, including, but also with a British accent.
Yes, she's amazing.
Yeah, she is our heroine in the next book, actually, in the next 3 books, thanks to Danielle, 3 books, not Alexa again. You can't tell I'm bitter. But no, Samantha, so Samantha's interesting. So we auditioned tons of fantastic voices, and she was on our list, and we were kind of working through, and just Will was actually, I think, our hardest voice to find, because I knew kind of what I was looking for. I needed a lady with some spunk and grit. So I needed her to be able to play lady, but to be spunky and gritty, like, right? Because Wilhelmina is like literally like 5'1", and Alexei is 6'6". So like, and I need this woman to be all of 6'6" in voice. Like that's what she can't portray in her size, she's going to portray in her personality, right? And so when we were listening to auditions, and they were fabulous auditions, I remember hearing Samantha several times going, I think, and then I saw her in Vegas, and actually I met her in person first before I saw If These Walls Could Talk. And when I met her in person, I was like, I love her voice. I really do. And then, I chatted with Danielle in DM, and I was like, Danielle, I really think this might be it. Right. And so she auditioned, and I was just like, yeah, she has the chops to like go up against this very big voice. And when you hear Adam Gold doing Alexei, you just hear this big voice. Right. And I don't know about Danielle, what your feelings about it was, but to me, she was just, she had the chops, she had the energy, and she
we knew she was it when we heard the audition.
Yeah, she just had it. And in the scene that she auditioned to, this poor woman is being like abducted off her ship, and she's still like angry and defiant at this big, Alexei voice. So she's fabulous and a delight to work with too as well.
It's one of those things where, sometimes we're pleasantly surprised. And I love that you guys also have this really important of professionalism in the relationship that you guys have. And because not all the time is it going to be yes all at the same time. There's going to be moments where there might not be an alignment or potential, not seeing eye to eye between the two of you as far as cast and stuff like that. How does that work out?
Communication is everything.
Well,
excuse me, Danielle's like, duh, communication.
Well, no, and here's the thing though, she's making a valid point, because you can disagree on things, but communication is key. That is the one thing I've learned in all business. As long as you're communicating, whether you agree or disagree,
correct,
then you can work stuff out. And that is one thing Danielle and I that is our ethos between the two of us. Even when I'm being a lunatic and she's being sanity, like we are always communicating. And so I will say that on my end, if I'm telling her this is why I don't think the voice works for me, or this is why I think it does, then she'll come back and communicate, this is why I think it doesn't, and this is why I think it does. I know, Danielle, what are your thoughts on that one?
The whys is a very important part of it. You can't just say no, and that's it. We really communicate all the way through, I don't think this is right and this is why, and then kind of help see each other's perspective.
And I think I'm never afraid to tell you, like, I can always be very authentically, ridiculously me and say X, Y, and Z, this is why I don't, like, I never feel like I can't, like, it's ever going to hurt her feelings if I say, here's why I don't like this, or here's why I do like this, but there's also a give and take too at some point where you're like, I may not see it, but you do. And that actually happened to Danielle and I with a situation recently. And it's not a bad situation. It's just like, for me here, like I recognize in myself that like I might not have the best opinion here. I think you have a better opinion than me. So I'm going to defer to you on this problem or this problem or this problem. And I've done that a couple of times where I'm like, as the author right now, I may not be objective. I need you to be the objective one here. And she's been understood that it's not me like wanting to defer. It's more that I trust her. And I'm like, you know better than me in this situation. So you know which one I'm talking about, Danielle.
Well, I think it's the trust there is important. Communication is so big, and we live in a world nowadays where it's lacking, and feelings are hurt. And instead of thinking of professionally how this works or how can we solve, like, I don't know that I hurt your feelings or that you took it that way unless you tell me. And if we don't have that conversation,
if anything, we over communicate, and that goes not just in between us, but with the narrators too. We keep the communication open throughout the whole process, and after, we're always transparent about everything that goes on in the process. That really helps.
Well, and it's not a perfect science, right? Like, things happen, life happens, work happens, you know what I mean? Hormones happen.
Now, also, we recorded this book during Mercury retrograde. So things definitely happened.
Actually, there were 2 Mercury retrogrades at bad times, during casting and during recording. So I will say we have checked into the stars a couple times to make sure we were aligned. There has been some sage burning. There have been some lucky pennies under like pillow. Like, there have been multiple different things that have had to happen.
I even got a Mercury retrograde survival kit in the mail from
I sent her one. I did. I really did. I burned my Mercury retrograde candle every day. It's interesting, like, because I am Murphy's Law as a human being. Like, literally everything that can happen will happen to TJ, like, for real. And I had COVID twice during like the pre-recording. My mother was in the hospital. Like, there were just multiple things that happened, and it's like it just one thing after another. So like in those situations, it's like, life happens. We're humans. Like I said, hormones happen, COVID happens, right? And like, I think the biggest thing for all the communication we have in the world today, we don't communicate. For all the communication, we've actually gotten worse at it. And I personally am not a big fan of text, DM, all those things. I mean, we use them, I use them, but the truth is, like, so much can be misconstrued. So if there's something serious or something important that needs to be talked about, I want to see somebody on Zoom, or I want to, talk to them on the phone, because there is something to be said by those moments of intimacy where people can hear your words, they hear your passion, they hear your voice. So call me a Gen Xer, call me old school, but like, a phone call does so much more and saves so many problems than anything else, right? Like, and there are times where I'll be like, Danielle, you got 5 minutes? And she'll be like, yeah, all right. And it ends up being 10, because it's always 10 for me. But I'll be like, oh my God, did you hear that clip? It's amazing. Or it's sometimes like, okay, this is the problem I'm having. And you can have that 5 minutes of dialogue and figure out how to fix the problem very quickly. And there were many times where Danielle and I had to fix problems at the last minute, and probably still will coming up, because it's a TJ London book. So So she's laughing over there, right? So it's honest to God, if you're communicating, then that's 75% of the battle, for me, at least. Yeah.
And I find that that's where you guys work so well together, as well as with your narrators, because there is that open line of communication where the narrators can come to you guys and ask about pronunciations, or you can provide them in advance, and they can still come back and ask. And because I know sometimes when I'm given some stuff or information, I'm going, I still don't know. Is this how you do it? And you don't ever want to feel like you're dumb or stupid or you're not getting it. Again, imposter syndrome is always lovely. And you guys have always been very open about having those lines of communications with the entire cast and being able to say you rather have them ask than the assuming and getting it wrong or thinking that something was wrong.
Oh, always ask. And I mean, this is a 200,000 word book too, so
It's tiny.
210. Get it right. 210.
Damn it. Inches count everywhere,
so,
okay?
We have a
count.
really amazing prepper in the team that does a really good job.
Give it up
But
for
there are also a lot of different pronunciations. So if something gets missed, it's always best to ask. Otherwise, they get a lot of pickups.
and it goes to Danielle most of the time. And then she's like, Tracy, oh my gosh, I hear a lot of Alexis and not Alexeis. I just had to make him difficult in every way, all the way down to his name.
Yeah, when I emailed one of the narrators with the pickups for his name, I said, the man is complicated down to his name.
That's right. It's your fault, Danielle. It's your fault. Blame yourself.
I didn't name him.
Blame yourself for all 725 pages of the Rebel. It's all you, man.
Goodness. It's I think it's really important to have these kind of conversations because that means that they may not ask for things that they want. They may not know to ask because the producer may not provide them with that info. So it's one of those where it's important to just ask the questions.
And there are authors too who prefer or don't have time to be as involved, and that's okay too.
Yeah,
they can hire the production company to do everything on their behalf if that's what they prefer. I know I work with some authors that have their PAs listen to it because they're so busy writing back to back. So and that's okay. It's just their preference.
Oh, I'm the first one that says
freaks. They're not all control freaks like me.
No, but I mean, that's also where, the conversation about like, our production company's worth it happens at times. And I'm like, listen, if you have the time to dedicate to the whole process of what it takes to make the audiobook, and as well as finding the editors and the proofers and all this other fun stuff, then go for it. Try it. A lot of authors sometimes do it for the first book and they go, hell no. Next book, I'm paying someone.
A lot.
Yeah.
And it's worth going to a production company just because there's so much that you don't know if you're coming into this for the first time. It makes all the difference between casting the right people, having the right sound engineer. There's just a lot to consider.
I will make a plug for the production company in terms of like, it's the right production company for you, I think is what it really comes down to for me, the right collaboration that you want. I would never want to pretend to know half of what Danielle is secretly doing on the other end that I have no clue of. I'm like, cool, have fun with that. You chase the Alexis down, not me. Right. But honestly, and then also it's, honestly, for me, that's just a part of it that I can't do. There's so much work in the writing end that just needs my attention, right? But but what's nice about our relationship is I'm still very it's us together, right? Working on this. I mean, obviously she's doing this component of the job and I did the first half of the job, and then we're doing these certain parts together. And every author, like you said, is different. So I think it's a matter of finding the right production company for you. And finding the right style, and that's the same for everybody. We're all individuals. We all have different needs as authors and companies and different things. So it's about that right fit. And for me, it was, this was the fit for me that I wanted, where I was able to, have my fingers in some of these pies, but not be holding the pan essentially. Right.
Yeah.
And, because Danielle's really holding the pan. And dealing with the shit too.
Yeah. I just get to eat the slice of the pie. I'm fine with that.
Right, exactly. And because she's got to, she has to manage not only what she's doing production, but she's also got to handle the expectations of the demanding and obnoxious and often frequently texting author. And then, the narrators are off there on the other end trying to do their job too and be like, okay, managing expectations here, right? There's a lot of, and it's not a gatekeeping thing. That's not what it is. It's I'm managing everybody's expectations and trying to bring this together to make the, the full pie, right?
But
So
our expectations are often the same, so it works out
that's
too.
Yeah.
well, that's the thing. We both we admit, I think we just admitted that to each other the other day, actually. Yeah, we both have this like expectation place that definitely meets it. I think that's a thing too, right?
Yep,
When you're
correct.
what you're looking for. And the start of it is, do you know what you're looking for? And then, how do you get it? And I think that's the hard part as the author, because there's no like manual on how to do this, right? There's no like
Map.
like you have to trial and error. Map. There you go. We talked about this before, Bev, right?
Yeah,
And
I still have it.
I know, right? I think there's something to be said as an author before you start audio, is going and listening to different audiobooks. Like, how do they sound? What did they do? What is a duet? Like, before you commit to one company, asking what their style is, like talking to other authors, like instead of just jumping into the pool and hoping you swim, which is essentially what I did, you can go out there and put your toe in the water and listen. And as I started to listen more and learn more, I was like, okay, I like this. 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 You know what I mean? And then finding a visionary who says, I can execute on this, whether it be you hand it over and somebody does it, or whether you're like me and you're like, I really want to some degree partner with you and bring it to life. So there's a lot that goes into it. And you also have to find someone who's willing to walk the journey with you, which I was, very lucky in with Danielle, because she's like, yeah, I see your vision. I get it. So.
Yeah. And I think that's multiple great points there about the gatekeeping, because sometimes it can feel like that if you don't know any better. Also, unfortunately, some do gatekeep. Others too is about having that conversation with your fellow authors. And that's something too that I always suggest to authors is, when you're listening to audiobooks, go to that author and say, hey, what was your process like? Who did you work with? What was that relationship as? I mean, did you feel comfortable? Get referrals just like you would with anything else.
I get lots of people asking me. I get hit up regularly about like the audio process, how it works, who do I recommend, those kinds of things and stuff like that. And, and the first thing I always tell them is go out and listen to a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's the same thing when you looking for a doctor or a specialist or someone to paint your house or fix your car. You're not going to just go out to the first one. And if you do, and it might be great, perfect, lucky fucker. But at times it may not be the best, or you don't know that there are additional options. So definitely if you're an author and you're looking into getting into audio, ask the question, talk to your co-authors.
You should definitely ask yourself, how involved do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And then have that conversation with potential production companies. Do you allow the authors to collaborate with the narrators? Because not everybody does.
Correct.
Just ask everything that you need to ask to make sure that you're getting what you want.
And I will say also, listen to voices. It's very important to listen to voices too, and find the ones that you feel like will interpret the story the way that you want to. Is it something that you feel very passionate about what that voice sounds like too, right? Mm-hmm. Like I am extremely passionate about the way the voices sound. Like I said, it's an artist thing for me. Like it's like painting, right? So go out there and listen and look for voices. There are so many narrators out there, so many fabulous ones that maybe we don't realize they're there, or they're there doing their thing and you just haven't seen them yet because maybe they don't do social media or they're not on the platforms, and it doesn't mean they're any less fabulous. And one of the perfect examples of this was Catherine Vinclair, who did India and Man of War. She was just somebody who was really new to me. I just had never heard her before. And then she came in with this just gorgeous performance. And it was like, I just hadn't heard of her, right? And so it's you don't be afraid to dig and listen and look and learn and experience, and even with voices.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And listen to your gut and look into the subject matter experts in the industry to help guide, or at least have the answers, because as I know, we all get hit up like, who's your favorite? Or, oh, I love so-and-so. And sometimes that's great, fabulous. But it may not be the right fit for that character.
Right.
And I know sometimes within the romance community specifically, the listeners are very opinionated about who their favorites are. And I love that, because I mean, that's one of the things that's great. And that's fantastic. Or like, so-and-so would be great. And I'm like, yeah, but so-and-so doesn't really do a really good Scottish accent, you know, and you're going, right. Maybe for another character, I know someone else that can, that, you know, he'll be great for. And it's just, you know, finding those right voices, and it's important. But DJ, I'm not surprised that you have authors hitting you up on ideas and suggestions and stuff like that, because you have not won one or two or three sofas. You've won like 6.
We've won 6.
Yeah.
We've won 6.
Yes.
We have won.
Yes, we have. You guys have won 6. And I love also too that when you say team and you go we, that's inclusive of your cast, inclusive of your, you know, Danielle, who is part of the process. So it's yeah. But again, 6 out of what, 8, I think? Yeah, 6.
8 it was.
Yeah.
It was. So those guys are gold. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a voiceover award. So, you know, it's a voiceover award. I write the script. They do the performance, right? Gosh, like, what can you say about those people though? Like the work that they, I mean, like you know what? The first time I walked up on the stage when Danielle, myself, and Jacqueline were in New York City it was like everyone was still in masks there and everything. And I remember when I walked up there, I literally broke down into tears. And it was just like, I'm clearly not the voice. I'm not these 9 voices, right? But like, I'm here to represent them. And this is amazing. And Tara was messaging me and I was bawling and it was very emotional. But I can't even, like, I don't even know what to say about that. It's just, I just listened to them and it's amazing. I'm just honored to have that group of people working with me, and so proud of the work that they do and what they do with my words, because I know what they sound like when I'm writing them and I'm talking to myself at my computer, right? But like, they just make them magic, right? They give something to my stories that I'm not able to deliver, right? That's what makes audio great, right? Like the narrator, the human voice, let's put that plug in, right?
Yep, the human voice.
Can deliver an emotion, just like the human word, let's put that plug in too.
Yep.
Can deliver from a place that, you know, is very unique. And I'm incredibly in awe of them, and so grateful they come back every time, and so proud of them. And yeah, I don't even know what to say, but it's exciting. And I'm in the Society of Voice Arts. They've been so supportive of independent authors and of my work. And they're just lovely people who run that whole program, or the awards, I guess is the best way to put it. And I meet so many lovely people at that event. I know Danielle has been with me now at 2 of them, and it's just, it's really cool. It's really, really cool. So I'm really humbled to have worked with such talented people. Yeah.
But even though it's a voiceover, I mean, again, it goes back to the actors and the narrators wouldn't have anything to do if it wasn't for you and your words. So, you know, it's one of those where it's important. And then it's just the dynamic duel when everything comes together, and how they perform it is fantastic. Danielle, what was it like to win these, you know, prestigious awards?
It was amazing. It was just nice seeing, you know, everyone in the team recognized for all their hard work.
Mm-hmm. And it was, you know, it's interesting because we forget, I mean, the sound engineering component of it, of bringing these voices. None of these people are in the room together, right? Yep. None of them are in the room. And you listen to what she does with them, and you would believe that they were all together. And that's what always amazes me when I hear it all. And you know, we've trialed where we've had everyone in the booth, you know, in a virtual booth, and then we've edited, and she does such beautiful work that it you know, you can't even tell. You really cannot tell the difference. So I mean, obviously the actors have a different passion when they're in the room together. That's legit, right? But they've done an amazing job of getting into the work and delivering it in their individual performances, and they get brought together, right? So it truly is a team sport. Audio is a team sport. Writing books is a team sport, and the awards are a team sport, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's amazing judges who, you know, have listened to my work and said, you know, this is worth winning, right? So I have to be grateful to them for, you know, seeing something in my work, you know. But yeah, it was exciting. It was very exciting. This past one in Los Angeles was super fun. Yeah.
Danielle, you were going to say something?
I don't remember.
I just talked over you.
Yeah, no.
The thought was there and then it was gone.
It happens, like coming into a room and saying, why am I here again? Yeah, it happens. No worries. But I think also too, I mean, a lot of people don't know when it comes down to the duets. You know, we get the final product, we get the everything pretty packaged together, and the oh my god, everything kind of thing. It's a lot of work. A lot of times the listeners don't understand why a book that they're paying for costs so much, and like because it's a lot. It's a lot. And like you said, Tracy, you write these small titles. I mean, what couple like 300, 200 and something pages?
Right.
Yeah.
As I stare down the 760
700.
pages of, I mean, mhm.
760 shit, bro.
I'm verbose in all ways. Let's just put it that way.
He likes them big.
I do. I like big books, and I don't lie about that. Nope. And I like big voices and big performances. So
yeah, because you tell them all the time to go to perform to the third balcony.
Play to the second balcony. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That is play to the second, and I even use that phrase occasionally within the book too.
Yeah.
Because in Patrick Zeller, I think you had your podcast last time too. He was like, I always know when I'm going to get a pickup from TJ. It's like more. And he breathes so wonderfully into the microphone too.
Mm-hmm.
So his ears are burning right now, like my face is.
Patrick. Yeah, but Danielle, I mean, you do. There's this magical. I mean, it's okay. It's audio engineering. There's a lot behind it, but they're at the end product is just very magical. Where you really think that they're in the exact same room, and they're not. And I know that sometimes some production companies will say that these scenes have to be done together. So via Zoom, also increasing the cost of the book because of the time being paid out for things. But the reality is my expectations, and Tracy, you know, let me know if this is different from yours, but if you're an actor, you shouldn't have to be in the same room to be able to deliver these lines. And so to the magic that you do to bring everything together, and also with such a big book, oh my God, I don't want to see your dashboard. I don't.
I'm gonna throw a little shade here. My actors can do it. And just kidding. No, they.
Well, the writing cues are there too. So a lot of it goes back to TJ. You know, like the way that she writes. You know what the characters are doing. Are they laughing? Are they crying? You know, the emotions come through. You know, because of her writing and the narrator's prep work too. You know, they go through
prep work.
Yeah,
prep work.
It makes a difference.
Oh yeah, going in cold is never a good thing, especially with such a big book.
Well, and this is the thing. Like this came from another narrator who is a friend of mine, and she said this to me the other day. She's like, I know why your book could be challenging to narrate. She's like, you're packing like 5 different emotions into one scene for one character. She's like, so I could never read this cold. And she's like, because I'm expected to go from here to here to here to here within one scene. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just because I'm like an emotional person, or I'm very like all over the place. I don't know, but like the content that I'm writing requires a lot of emotion, right? So I've asked a lot of them, you know, in terms of emotion. So yeah, that's a reason, you know, obviously their preparation is always so brilliant, and then they deliver so brilliantly. Like Tara Langella, that poor character, you know, that she reads, Ellis McKesson, goes through like so much trauma in her life, yet she like literally delivers on all those emotions, like within every scene. It goes to the strength of her prep and her talent and her ability. And you wouldn't even know, like I said, she's not in the room with Kale Williams when she does it. So, and then, like I said, then it's timed so nicely together when Danielle does her part. And then you get this, you know, like beautiful canvas, this picture, right? This piece of art. And that's how I look at audio. For me, is it's art. Right.
Mm-hmm. Danielle, like I said, I would not want to look at your dashboard. That will give me anxiety.
No.
I know. No, I mean, like, I know what it's like, you know, doing like, well, we're having, you know, multiples and, you know, or threesomes, or, you know, like these TJ's roundtable where they each have a line on my dashboard when it comes down to editing an episode. And I'm going, okay, but with a full cast and the interruptions and the banter. Yeah. So kind of, I sort of want to see. So take a screenshot next time that you're editing one of these things. Okay. I'm going, no.
I don't know if I want to see it. I don't actually know. Like, I want to see that.
But the preppers work makes a big difference too, because I know how many characters are in each chapter and who they are. So it makes it easier for me to know, find the files that I need to edit for that chapter. And it just makes, you know, of course the whole manuscript is highlighted. each character has their own color now.
We were running
had
out of
so
colors.
many
Color coding.
characters.
We were running
We
out
were
of
running out of
colors.
colors.
Yep.
Yep, that's right. I want more.
Danny, sometimes I secretly wonder sometimes if as TJ is writing these things, she's like, I'm gonna fuck with Daniel now.
Actually, you know what? Believe it or not, it's more how
She
am I gonna
probably
fuck with
does
that?
that when she's torturing Alexi.
Yeah.
But what I will say is it's actually more like, what can I make this narrator say? Rawr! I poor Adam Gold. I did all kinds of goodies for him in the Rebel because I'm like, oh, I want to hear him say this, and oh, I want to hear him do this. So, yeah. But no, you know, with Danielle, it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, ooh, yeah, she's gonna have to like put all this together. So I kind of try to take some mercy on her. I try to be easy on you.
Yeah, and there's always payback. She doesn't, you know, I can sneak in sex scenes in podcasts, so she has to listen to them.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a fun conversation Danny and I were having off just the two of us.
you really want to go there, do you? Listen, all my
play,
fans
Danny.
know
Press
this.
play.
All my fans know this about me. I don't want to listen to my children fucking. I know they do. I just don't want to hear it. Okay. It's like we all feel that way. Like I know they're getting down. I wrote it. But and here's the thing, like the problem for me when I listen to it, it's like, oh my gosh, like someone sat in a booth and was like reading that. And I'm like, oh no. Like, and granted, I don't write nearly the exciting stuff that some of they narrate. I mean, like my stuff is like nothing. It's like vanilla compared to like some of this stuff. Still, it doesn't matter. They're my children and they're fucking, and I don't need to know about it.
She thinks they're tame.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do some of the stuff that other people do, like seriously, and God bless them. But I mean, now some of the violent stuff, now that's fun to listen to, right? You know, like, I mean, like John Hartley carving up poor India's face in Man of War. I was like, yeah. No, seriously. I just, the sex scene thing, like it's well known, like I can't, I just can't. Like I've lost several bets, but you know, she's still trying to get me to listen to one. So I know it's coming. Whether it's here or at the next podcast, I know you're going to slip something in. And even Patrick Zeller, back to him. Yep. He got me on the last podcast too.
Yes, he did.
He started imitating a sex scene. I'm like, ah.
Yeah, and this is where I have so much fun with you guys in that. Fortunately or unfortunately, like we don't record the videos. Well, I do, but I don't share them because you guys are for audio. And the way that TJ reacts, oh my God, guys, it's just fantastic. I mean, she was literally when she was talking about the sex scenes, she's literally putting her head in her shirt, like hiding. And yeah, or when John Hartley says something, it's like,
I may blush occasionally.
Yeah.
The one that was funny was, what was it? Nicholas Bolton on the one podcast. I asked him, I think you asked me, like, how do you narrate? Like, how do you get into the mood to narrate sex scenes? And, you know, Catherine Van Keller gave this very, you know, interesting and professional answer. And he's like, well, I climb into a hammock and try it with my wife. And I was like, oh. And I mean, like, I couldn't handle it. Handle it. I'm not like this demure person by any means. No. And the funny thing is when I write them too, I'm all like, ha, 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 ha. And I'm like and I'm just all excited and it's great. And my husband walks in, I'm like, don't look at my computer, you know, and I'll get back to it. And especially the one, I keep talking about the one in the Rebel because my power went out twice while I was writing it. I'm like, so you know, it's good when that happens, right?
Yeah, and, that's true.
Yeah. And I even told Danielle, I'm like, I might actually, if I sit on my hands, I might have to, like, she had to talk me through a sort of love scene in Man of War. Like, she's like, okay, Just stop occasionally and then breathe and listen again.
I say, because I'm always like, TJ's like, we're going to get to that point where Danny's going to send me this. I'm like, I volunteer as tribute if you need someone to listen to it and make sure it sounds okay. I mean, Danny already has a great ear for it, but if she needs a second pair of ears, I'm fine.
I can't explain it to you. I don't know. And it's the hardest with John Carlyle. It's the hardest. So like, I know she sent me a couple things of Kale, like doing some sexy talking. I'm like, I'm like, you said cock. Oh my God. Don't say that word.
She hides again.
Cock, by the way, appears 120. What was it? 120 times in the book. And Danielle's like, that's not a cock. And
that's
I'm
a lot of cock, TJ.
I told her I'm gonna make a reel of
the
characters just saying that back to back.
But the thing, it's cocked hat. It's not that much salacious, right? It's a time period thing, but there is a lot of cocks for other reasons in their book. But yeah, the minute he started saying it, I'm like, oh, I can't listen anymore.
Yeah. Well, a lot of authors have issues where, when it comes down to the sex scenes, they have said it, they will write blah, 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 insert sex scene here, and then they'll continue to write. So it's even when it comes down to writing, I'll add audio to it where, we're human beings and stuff like that. And we're like you said, these are your kids.
I have no problem writing them. Oh no, I'm like usually like, yeah, it's time to do it, but when it's actually listening to them, I'm like, oh, well, no, that's not going to happen. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, and then there are some scenes where I listen to them and like, I just like get all emotional and I'm all like a crying mess and lock myself in my room and just like in the fetal position, twitching. I've had a few of those too. So yeah. And Danielle is always good for a setup on some of them too. She's like, all right, are you ready? She'll say me, are you ready? You better listen to this one. And I know sometimes like I'll purposely leave her hanging too. Like I'll have listened to it, but I won't respond. I'll just be like,
I love this dynamic,
don't you, Danielle? But then she'll get me back too. Like I know she's listened to a decent amount of the book already, but she's like, you want me to get it done, don't you? I'm like, there's been no commentary. You want me to get it done, don't you? I'm like, the hell? You did that to me. You did that to me when you were listening to the Turncoat, didn't you? Didn't you?
Some of it.
Yeah. Look at that evil laugh that she's doing.
Yeah. Cause she, and like, so I, one of my proofers was, the interesting thing about Turncoat, and I think this is what's really the most interesting about this audio of all of them, is I completely rewrote that book. So the scenes are the same. The people have been changed to protect the innocent. No, the scenes have remained the same of the original version of it, but like the whole prose has been rewritten to update it to make it fresh for the audio, to make it match for the Rebel, but also because I wanted to elevate the prose to, I've been writing longer, that kind of thing. I've got more experience. So nobody has seen this format, this version of it, except like my editor, my proofer, Dee, our proofer, and who breaks down the script, and now Danielle. So there's part of me that's secret, like, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? So that's part of it too. So I'm really excited. This will be very fresh and very new for even my fans who love the Turncoat or love the series, right? It'll be a totally new listen. So, well,
we always say as readers, well, I kind of wish we can go back and read it for the first time. Technically, now y'all are going to read this one for the first time.
Yep.
Because it's a different book of sorts.
Yeah. And then also, we bring back kind of all your favorites, right? And so that's the fun part about it. And then, then you get to see these new people that weren't originally in the book necessarily when I wrote it the first time too. So that was an experience, and it, added another layer to the audio process too. So that's always fun. So, yeah.
Yeah. And Danielle, with you wearing the multiple hats as far as both, and straddling the author and the audio production side of things, when it comes down to doing these books for TJ, and she does not want to hear about the sex scenes, do you secretly, like you were doing that evil laugh, do you secretly go, cannot wait until she sees this?
Because I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of ways to trap her into listening. We have bets that she loses from time to time. And I usually say, okay, Farwayne, you have to listen. So it's just a matter of time.
The problem is I've not followed through on any of my bets, so I'm overdue.
Yes.
Oh boy.
I'm overdue. Well, and the interesting thing is there's a romantic scene in this particular book that isn't actually like by definition, like puck and net sex scene. Okay. It's everything else, but not the puck and the net. Okay. I'm from Detroit. I have to use the hockey reference here, but it's a very like sensual scene. And I'm like, there's part of me that like secretly like wants to like hide under my pillow and like listen to it. And then just like peek out and like, okay, listen, and then put it back down over my head, you know, so I don't hear. And I'm sure that Danielle will be like, all right, you got to listen to this one. I know it. And that's the funny thing. I know what scenes she's going to be like, oh, Trace, you got to listen to this one. Like I already know going into it, she's gonna be like, oh no, you got to hear this one. And this is one of them. And that was the hammock scene in Man of War.
I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just knew when I sent that to her, I'm like, here, have that, you know. And then she's like, oh, you got to listen to this scene. I'm like, what chapter is that? And she tells me, I'm like, oh yeah. And then I went in and seriously had to breathe deeply through the whole thing. But yeah, that was fun. So
yeah, because you were sending me notes saying, are you there yet? Are you there yet? Are you there yet?
Have you listened? Have you listened?
And I'm like, I'm close. It's like, again, kind of one of those books.
I am that obnoxious friend author who will be like, did you listen? Did you like it? Did you hear it? Like what did you know, I'm that person who will like totally prod you. Who I am not that author that will go stone face. Hey, whatever you think, it's good. You just read, you do you. I'll listen. I'll find out when you're done. Review me. I'm like, no. Did you hear it? Did you hear it? Did you like it? What'd you think?
You know, inside on the inside, they're all thinking that though. They want to know.
Oh, yeah, secretly they probably. So that's why you're like, you're waiting for me to read Pride, right? You're like, she's going to listen to it eventually. She will. And I'm like, until you start listening to the Turncoat, I'm not going to listen to Pride.
Well, I did start listening though.
Actually, the reason I didn't get started either.
And two, I had to stop for the pickups.
She's been doing pickups forever. I'm like, really? How long? And it's like, you have 11 narrators, Tracy. The book is 700 and so many pages, like for real. So my fault entirely. But the Turncoat is the biggest of all my books. It is the longest of all of them so far.
I was going to say so far. Yeah. On the next episode.
Far be it for me to lie, you know, but yeah. But right now the Rebel stands at 207. So it's in second place. And Man of War was 206. And it was funny. I was recently reading through the Trader because I read through and make sure that things, and it's like 150. And I'm like, oh, this shit's easy. This is fast, man. Like I could do this in a weekend. And that's a big book though, still. So,
which then translates to being a very long audiobook, but it's so worth it.
Well, and this is the thing, I think to me, like, it's not even the like big books thing. If the story warrants the words in the pages, that it warrants the words. Like, that's one of the things, like, I could never, and it's not just because I'm a big mouth. It's one of those things that, like, I could never handle, like, someone saying, you get this word count and that's what you get. And kudos to people who can do that. They're better women than I am or better men than I am. And that's their biz. But for me, I cannot put word count on story. For me, it's about, does the pacing work? Have I executed the story? Does it tell the story I need to be told? And then you can look at it and go, okay, these are extra words. These are wordy things. These are scenes we don't need. But I never go into a book going, I'm going to make this book 150,000 words.
Yeah, I couldn't do that either. And, you know, there's not one scene in any of your books that could have been cut for that purpose. Everything is there for a reason.
She doesn't write fillers. I know sometimes authors will do that, or they'll throw in a sex scene just because they're trying to make that word count. And I'm like, you could have just made it into a novella and it would have been fine. and so that's one of the things I love about, you know, TJ's writing is that there aren't any fillers. Even though Man of War was how many hours total? I think like
23, 22 and a half.
Yeah. And I wanted more.
Well, and so this is the thing with it too. So like, I remember my editor on Man of War, she's like, I'm going to cut about 10,000 words out of this book. And she's like, oh, actually you're going to need to write about 6 when she got it, because I had to make it bigger because I was missing pieces and stuff. And for me, well, I'm lucky. It's historical fiction with romantic elements, right? So I have to build your world for you. I have to give you history, and then I've got to give you their story, right? So people, by the time they get to the Turncoat and then the Man of War and then the Rebel, they're vested now. They've gotten through the Tory and the Traitor. Haha, I've teed them up, right? That first scene with Delancey scalping a woman in the beginning is really kind of set them up. But anyway, I've teed them up, you know, in these shorter books, and they realize that that's just how my story rolls. So I don't get too many people who are surprised now. They're like, oh my God, that book's so big. Like they get it, right? They realize it from the very beginning that that's my content. That's how it's going to be. And even the trigger warnings and the content warnings, like they know that already when they get to this point, right? And I'm very transparent about that. And I'm transparent with my narrators as well as Danielle with it too. Understand that there's this content. And there are times where I'm like, haha, there's this content. We just had that moment over the opening scene of the TURNCOAT. I'm like, Danielle, this is what's really happening in this scene. And she's like, oh, and then, and also like even Kale's like, oh, and we're like, so we can create and go there with the readers. So for me, it's the story warrants the word. And that's my ethos when I sit down. If I could make them shorter, I would, trust me.
But I'm glad that you don't. I mean, like I said, when I was listening to the Man of War, it flew by, because you see the number, you're going, there's 24 hours in a day, and this one's 23 something. And, you're going, okay. But from the moment I hit play, it was just like listening and being engrossed in it. And wow. So this is where I say when it comes down to audio stuff, having to be able to provide us with that vision and that storytelling, and then having the performers where you're going, I want more. Like I was like,
well, Nicholas Bolton, and Catherine Vinclair and Patrick Zeller and, John Hartley and Tara Langella and Marnie Young and Jason Clark and, Drew and James. They're brilliant storytellers. Like the story is mine, right? But they're the tellers, right? Like every little kid wishes their dad sat at their bedside or their mom and sounded like that, right? And that's where the art, I think, of audio comes in. Is you get a great script, but then you get these beautiful storytellers, and that's why Man of War, was nominated the way that it was, and it won the way that it was. It was magic. They really were just magic, that group together. It was just like kismet. Like everything came together so brilliantly and so beautifully in that performance. So I will give some kudos away on that one big time.
Yeah. Yeah. And Danny, I know the authors are and as well for you when it's your own book, get a little bit on that, needles and pins about hearing some of that feedback from the listeners, and will they like it and stuff like that. But as a producer in this, and as being part of this journey with TJ, do you also find yourself getting on pins and needles for people to listen?
Yeah, definitely. I'm always talking her reviews.
Thank you. Well, and I'll share them
I send them to you.
And I send them to her too.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. I think when we execute on the vision, like the collective vision between the two of us, like it's like I've told you before, it's like a pyramid, right? She and I are kind of up here, and then it kind of goes, the narrators, and then obviously, the production and all that stuff. But like when we execute on a vision, and when she and I walk away and we're like, yeah, this is how we want it to sound, then we're just hoping everybody gets it, right? That's always the thing with art, is like you get it and you're passionate and you love it, but do they get it, right? Are they in on the joke, or whatever you want to call it, right? And so that's the beautiful thing, is when people are in on it with you. And hey, it's a preference thing. People like and they don't, and that kind of thing. But art when you hear it, even if you don't love it, you still can appreciate it, right? Or see it, you can still appreciate it. So yeah, I feel like it really is just as much hers as it is mine. Because like I couldn't do it or execute on it without her. So it's just really this partnership, and then obviously them too, right? But even before we get to them, it's kind of like that.
The two of you,
her and I the two of us working together. So I'm really truly the luckiest author in this business. And I work with the hardest working audio team in the world. Like truly, like they've done what I could not do with just my books on the shelves.
Danny, what do you think about that?
Speechless. It's great working with TJ every time. And it's really,
you're being nice.
Stop.
It's 100% collaboration. It's 100% collaboration. There will be no audiobooks without her words.
I'm a horribly, like, for all my boastfulness, I'm a horribly like self-deprecating person. Like, don't like say nice things to me, please. Like, I'm always teed up for bad news. I'm like, okay, what is it today? But like when somebody says something really nice, I'm like, ooh, like, really? Are you just saying that? Like, I struggle with that, because We all have imposter syndrome. I don't
Yep.
call mine, I don't call myself imposter syndrome. I call myself a self-deprecating fuck. I just am very, very hard on myself. Like no one out there in this world could possibly review me harder than I review myself. And that's part of the reason I struggle so much to listen to my audiobooks and obviously my sex scenes, because I know that I have a vision and I'm always infinitely trying to get at the execution, and I'm just always a little bit away, you know? And so all I hear and see is that little bit I wasn't able to reach. And maybe that's what keeps me pushing and trying to get better and trying to do better. It also drives other people crazy because I'm pushing them too towards that as well. And it can make people think you're difficult, or that can make people think that you're hard on them, but it's really not even about them. It's about you chasing that perfection, that dysfunctional perfection that you're never going to achieve. So
yeah, you definitely need to give yourself more credit, because I mean, your writing style, the character development, it's all the foundation for everything.
And even wanting them getting to that one moment closer to be quote unquote better, and having that vision executed, you're asking and you're expecting better, which means you wouldn't ask of it if you didn't think they could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are times, where I get probably what is the most incredible performance, and I'm like, give me more, like I can see you going a step further. And the brilliant thing is that many times they actually get on board with this. Like Nicholas, perfect example. Like, does Nicholas ever do anything that's not perfect? And he sends us this, we just needed this one word fixed. And he's like, well, that sounded like crap. I'm just going to redo the whole beginning again. And he sends us back the whole beginning, and Danielle and I are like, well, that's even better, So they do it. I think if they feel your passion and your faith in them and your direction of them wanting to go further, they'll go further too as well. And we've been very fortunate. They've seriously always none of them have been like, fuck off, TJ. They've all been like, no, let's go here. Let's see how far we can push it and what we can do. And Danielle too as well.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to strive for better and improvements and be able to get that feedback and say, okay, let's just figure this out. I don't ever want to get complacent where I think that I'm the best at this point. I'm going, no, I still have time. I want to improve, whether that means taking this class or listen to Danny say, hey, we need to do it this way instead, or listen to TJ, write it this way instead. There's always room for improvement, and being able to have someone in your corner that is like, all right, that was good, but I know you can do better. It's important to have that in your life. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there and be complacent. We're like, no, I am who I am. And this is that. I'm like, okay, well then you're going to stay there. I'm going to go over here.
Well, and to not be offended, because sometimes people can take that offensively, right? Like that's the biggest thing. It's meant as a corrective criticism. Like in a world where everybody wants to, have things be very happy and very cushy and very perfect and work out, not everything is, sometimes it's like, no, I need you to step it up. I need you to work a little bit harder. I'm going to push you a little bit further, and coming from an author too, obviously Danielle usually delivers that. I usually am like, okay, Danielle, here's what I need. And she does it so eloquently. She oftentimes has to send her emails over and go, okay, is this nice? Am I doing good? Just because I'm just a very direct person, but I'm also extremely like I just know what I want to hear. And the hardest character I am on, hands down, is John Carlyle. And, when I would listen to stuff, I'm like, okay, Danielle, this, and this. This is what I need. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And the beautiful thing is that, Cale was like, yeah, okay, cool. And we had some dialogue when he was recording. He's like, okay, I can do this, or okay. And even John Hartley was like that too, as well as Patrick. And even Samantha too. She's like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And so there's a nice constructive way to push, and to poke and to nudge. And Danielle keeps me on the straight and narrow.
But we've been very fortunate that everybody that we work with, they're so open-minded. And when we say something, can you give us more here? They also see the same potential that we see. And then they do, and they're like, okay, I'm really happy that it came out this
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. And then you get the Adam Golds who sends you 5 different versions, and you're like, okay,
Now we can't
maybe
choose.
Yeah.
now we have problems. Like
Yeah.
now we have problems.
Yeah, 5
And
really
they're
good
fabulous
ones.
problems. Fabulous problems, right?
Yeah, there was
Which
a
is
section where he sent us 3 different versions, and we could not pick. They're all they're all
I
great.
did. I'm like, I have to call her. I'm like, Danielle,
I sent it to
need to talk to
TJ,
you.
and I said, good luck choosing.
And I called her and I was like, okay, we need to talk about this. There needs to be maps, and like we need diagrams, and we need like everything. Like, what do we do with this? And there have been a couple scenes where we've done that too as well. And it's incredible to see what and then, you know, and then it comes alive, right? For the
Yep.
listener. So I look at it
Absolutely.
this way: if a listener, whatever we give them, Danielle and I, and obviously the narrators that work with us, it is the best that we possibly could do. You know, we look at it and we're like, this is our version of perfection. You know, this is our this is how we want. So any decisions we make together is always about, can we make this more beautiful and more interesting and more exciting for the listener, right? So that, yes, we're going to get those people that are like, this is a lot more than I want, or the story's not my style, and those are all okay. But in general, can we give them, and those people who get it, they're going to go, yeah, this was, you know, this was a total audio experience. So that's always kind of the ethos, like I said, the art component. And then did we give them everything but the kitchen sink, or the kitchen sink too, as well?
It definitely, when you get a TJ book, you get everything.
You do get the kitchen sink occasionally too. So,
but again, I mean, it goes back to, we are all human beings and we can take things a certain way, but you don't ever want to placate yourself, or rather, you don't ever want to be at a point where you can't think you can do better. You want to strive for better. You want to strive to.
That's not this team's problem.
Yeah, no, they're already there. They're wanting
Yeah, no.
to. They're like, tell me more. What can I have done better? Which is great. You know, I love that about this team.
Yeah, and they're in a set. I mean, Danielle and I were talking about the other day. We're like, we're probably like the hardest on ourselves than anybody, and we're kind of malignant perfectionists, I guess is the best way to put it, because it's just, we just want it to be, we just really, I just really want the reader to feel and see what I see and feel when I put it on my computer. And like I said, you know, for the eyeball readers, which I'm definitely an eyeball reader too, there's just something that audio allows that the eyes don't, right? And so that's the fun of this. You know, you can make audio super fun. And so I challenge lots of other authors to see it for, it's just not one, it's the medium is just not having someone narrate a book. It's having somebody recreate your world for you. And if you look at it that way, then you can have just as much an amazing experience in doing it as I do. So
yeah, that's why I want to talk to you guys together, because I find it fascinating, the dynamic duo that you guys are, to make the product what it is. And it's good that you're hard on yourselves. I think to expect others to work as hard as you expect them, and then you're going, but I'm good, is not cool. It's so not right. You're like, wait a minute.
We don't have, we never, but like, I think, I don't think artists, like true artists, are like that. I think true artists are like, how can I take it a step further? You know? And you always get nervous when you bring on new people into your work, right? Because like in the end, it's mine, right? Like I pay the bills, like my name's on the book, right? Like in the end. So to some degree, the ownership is always on you, and the passion becomes predominantly yours, right? Like you have to see the vision first before other people can see the vision, right? Like, so that being me and Danielle. And you always are nervous when you bring more people on. Are they going to be able to go there with you? But you can also find those things out as you interview and you talk to people. And that's one of the things Danielle and I both agree about, as we bring people on, and she'll say this, we dialogue with everybody that we bring on. This is what we're doing. You know, obviously they audition, and we give all, and Danielle will speak to this too, we give all the notes, all the information, what we're looking for, set everybody up for success. And then, you know, when we, and because we want the best possible audition. And I know Danielle agrees, when you send out 10 of them, you want the best 10 you can possibly get out of everybody. So then you can get the best sense of what you're going to get, right? And then you bring them into the team and say, okay, thank you for your amazing audition. you're going to be amazing on this team. And this is the ethos of this team. You know what I mean? And so you feel like by setting them up for success and for what you're trying to do, then you get the right people who come onto your team and they want to be a part of it, you know?
And through the process, we're also trying to do everything that we can to facilitate things for the narrators too. From giving them notes about the characters to prepping the manuscript. Like right now, I told a couple of them, I just need a couple of extra days for the pickups because I'm doing what I can to fix the ones that I can on my end. Like if it's taking off like an extra word that they added, their performance was just so great. I don't want them to mess with it. Like you can't get any better than this. So if I can fix that pickup on my end so they don't have to re-record it, even better. It's the last that they have to do.
Yeah. So it's a whole process, like I said, and it starts from the audition all the way to through, right? Like, and there's an ownership on everybody's level, right? Like we, like one of the most important things I think from the very beginning is like I said, the setup for the perfect audition, give them all the information, everything that they need to know to come in and be successful and to find the right person, that introduction to the process. And then obviously Danielle does such a brilliant job, like with her timelines. Sometimes I break them. That's on me. But she, and then, letting them know that we're here, both myself and her, through the process for questions, and then obviously making them feel very comfortable. And then obviously the post-production, she does all this stuff. And then to when the book actually launches, it's like that it's like the whole journey. Like, get it, they do tons of books and they've got lots on their plate, but I've not found any of them that haven't really wanted to like have ownership through the whole process. So
I know I'm excited for this to come out. I'm excited for when we get together again with the narrators and do our round table, because that's always going to be fun. I'm always waiting to see how TJ is going to react to something that one of them says.
Well, and I'm sure there's never a dull moment or a bomb that is dropped, right? So
absolutely not. It's one of these things where I'm like, hey, you want to do it again?
I'm not easy to embarrass, but I'm really easy to make red. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And then Danny, you got to give me those clips so we can.
Yes.
The worst would be if you guys, like, if someone is, okay.
I mean, we could get we can ask the narrators to do it. I know, a live reading.
Well, here's the thing though, I mean, if you do that, I can just like put myself on mute, right?
Yeah. But still, it's still worth it though.
Yeah, you guys are.
I'm pretty sure that you're going to be read for like an hour after the podcast. So I don't think that temporary mute will work out too well.
You're like, none of that. Even if I hide my face, it's. I mean, even after I record these ones like this, I usually get off and go, "Oh my God, what did you do?" I'm like, I seriously, like, what did you say?
We could send them a challenge, like pick a sentence out of the book that you think would embarrass TJ, and they can read it live during the podcast.
This is why I love Danny.
Dude, Kale's got a lot of them. Like, seriously, he's got a lot of embarrassing ones for me. Like, I'm trying to think it. And now I'm like, now I'm thinking, I'm like, what is embarrassing that anybody else has said that isn't coming out of Don Carlisle's
not embarrassing.
No, not embarrassing them. Like to them. Just
those steamy scenes, they're going to embarrass you.
But even the reaction. I mean, I remember when last time we talked, and the scene that Patrick did with the drunk. I mean, like you were like, oh yeah, let's talk that. I mean, because it was just such a great scene. I mean, it was fantastic in it. Yeah.
When I wrote that scene too, because it was basically, I lived with a bunch of wrestlers in college, and it was basically my roommates coming home loaded one night, acting like a bunch of idiots. And the funny thing was, Patrick was like, "Oh, I know these guys. Like, I used to hang out with these guys. I got it down." And I remember when me and Danielle were listening to it, we were like, "Oh my God, is that really Patrick? Like, for real?" And then you can hear the outrage in like Catherine Vinclair's voice. And she wasn't even really in the room with them, but she says she's just totally outraged by it. I'm like, yeah, we all know those dudes. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, there might be some good ones. See, that would be fun if you pop me with a few that are like ridiculous like that. Yeah. But
Danny, you and I will get together afterwards before we record, and we'll figure some stuff out. Love you, TJ.
It's all good. It's all good in the neighborhood. Like I said, well, in the end, I mean, like what am I going to do? Right. If you surprise me, you surprise me. But just know that revenge is cold. The best is a dish best served cold. It's a Klingon proverb, and I will immortalize you in fiction.
Fuck, she's gonna write me in a book and kill me off.
But then there will be revenge to the revenge.
All I gotta say is I've
this can become like a never-ending cycle.
Oh yeah,
it could be a cycle of revenge. Well, I mean, I gotta be honest with you. No author out there is innocent of not getting even with somebody in a book. We've all done it. So.
No, yeah. I mean, there's a mug with it. I mean, I'm all for it, but I'm like,
the good thing is that I also have books. So if I end up in one, you might end up in one too, and
if Alexi ends up dead,
there's always Tucker from the Sinner series that could die.
I'm just an innocent bystander who's hosting the two of you. I'm going to be like, you guys are playing ping pong and like, boom, look to your left, boom, look to the right of the ball.
Using the characters.
Yeah. And the poor readers are like,
yeah, right. This is one of the reasons why I love having the two of you together. It's been great, and having to showcase the dynamic, right? That this can be done. This is how it should be, done. When you have the right team, that it could be so much fun, even in those moments where you're going, are you fucking kidding me? To trust in that team that you have is fantastic. So guys, this has been so much fun. Thank you both for being part of this year's Audiobook Lovin Series. It's been fantastic, and I cannot wait until this book comes out so we can all listen to it. So thank you again for being here, both of you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Rare Bird, for showing up, Danielle.
Yeah, Danny, I thank you for letting me pop your cherry. I hope this threesome was good for you.
It was great. Like I said, you may never see that Rare Bird again, but she's here today. So
I had her.
Well, I'll be back for the round table. So.
Yes.
And then I'll disappear for another year.
Yeah.
They'll see you again. Yep. In another year. Right. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Viv. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Everyone, thank you for hanging out with us today. And we hope you've enjoyed this chat as well as the series. I'll make sure to include both of their social media information on the main page over at Enchantress of Books. And until next time, happy listening.
A special thank you to authors DJ Krimmer, Tana Stone, Landon Beach, PJ Fiala, and all of our sponsors of the Audiobook Lovin 2023 series.
Visit today's episode post to listen to sound clips of some of the books we discussed and enter the month-long giveaway. If you enjoyed the Audiobook Lovin podcast series and you want more, join the Audiobook Lovin podcast Patreon for early access to podcasts, exclusive content like the Would You Rather game and dinner party guests, and additional incentives such as bloopers, graphics, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a Patreon at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. Thank you for joining Viviana and her guests for this podcast, and we hope you tune in again as we continue to celebrate Audiobook Month. The Audiobook Lovin Series is hosted by Viviana, the Enchantress of Books. Please make sure to visit the main page linked within the post to learn more about the entire Audiobook Lovin Series and the enchanting author and narrator guests who have joined us over the years. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving a review wherever you listened, and please follow us on social media platforms and subscribe to the Viviana, the Enchantress of Books newsletter. Until next time, happy listening. Audiobook Lovin hopes you have enjoyed this program.